Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Kageyama, and I'd like to welcome everyone here to Be Your Own Hero. I'm a stage 4 prostate, bone, and lung cancer patient, been dealing with cancer since early 2021, doing very well. So glad to be here, so glad to be alive. We celebrated a couple of big milestones. It was my granddaughter's first birthday party this past weekend. And we had just also, and I had mentioned this before, we celebrated being here in Texas for a year. And I just asked somebody the other day, how long is it before you can consider yourself to be a Texan? And I'll ask my guest that same question. How long is it before I can consider myself to be a Texan? Because I came from California, born and raised, never thought I'd leave, but so glad to be here and so happy to have made the move. So happy that I was healthy enough to make the move. And we would have done it sooner if I would have known it was going to be this nice. So I am so excited about our guest today. And she is a longtime survivor and has gone through battles. And at this time, I'd like to welcome Rebecca Esparza from Texas, Corpus Christi, Texas. She now happens to be in Washington, D.C. So, Rebecca, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are.
Sure. Um, I'm Rebecca Esparza from born and raised in Corpus Christi, Texas. Left a little while, went to San Antonio, then came back and uh, I do marketing and public relations and writing for various companies. But I also do a lot of cancer advocacy work that I like to sprinkle in there with my regular day job.
That is awesome. So let's talk about how your cancer journey began because it's actually really, really fast. And I love talking to longtime survivors because it's really different in today's world how we deal with cancer as opposed to when you went through it. So let's start at the beginning and let's find out about what happened.
Sure. It was August of 2001. I woke up with shooting, stabbing pains in my abdomen, went to the ER, and they did numerous tests, couldn't find anything wrong. Sent me home with some anti-anxiety, anti-depression medicine and said, follow up with your general care practitioner. And instead, I followed up with my GYN person in Texas because I'd had two previous surgeries to remove fibroid tumors in my 20s, and I thought there's probably more fibroid tumors again. My doctor had warned me, you're going to keep having fibroid tumor issues. So I saw him in September, and he said, I'm very concerned because I saw you in April and you looked fine, and now it looks like as if you're 4 months pregnant, and I was not pregnant. Um, he kind of warned me. He said, I won't know for sure until we open you up for surgery, but I'm really concerned it might be ovarian cancer. And I kind of blew him off. I said, I'm 30 years old. 30-year-old women do not get ovarian cancer. So I was a busy freelancer at the time. So I penciled the surgery in on Thanksgiving Day because that was a slow time in my work. And when I woke up from the surgery, what I thought was to remove fibroid tumors again, and it ended up being a radical hysterectomy. And I woke up with my parents weeping at my bedside, and I knew then instantly that something horrible had happened. And yes, it was ovarian cancer. I had a radical hysterectomy, and the worst part about it was that I did not have health insurance because as a freelancer, um, I had been told that I wouldn't qualify for insurance because I had declined COBRA from my previous employer and I didn't have a certificate of continuing coverage. This was back in the old pre-existing condition days. And I was told if we insure you, it's not going to cover anything GYN related. So I opted not to get it. And then 6 months after that, I get ovarian cancer.
I can't even imagine what was going through your mind to go through a surgery thinking that one thing is going to happen, and then all of a sudden you wake up and something totally different has happened. So let's talk about that aspect, what your thoughts were, and you know, how long did that effect last on you? And then also talk about the insurance aspect more, because I mean, you got a double whammy and didn't ask for either one, I
No,
imagine.
yeah, it was I was devastated. I was really devastated. Um, it took me years to deal with the whole hysterectomy thing and not having children thing. And even now, it's still there's still grief there. I'm 53 years old. This happened a long time ago, and there's still grief issues there. I guess I'll be grieving for the rest of my life. It's just something that once it happens, there's no going back. You know, you can't get stuff put back into you that are aligned with your reproductive. Once you lose it, it's gone, and there's no turning back. So I've had to do a lot of soul searching and a lot of crying and praying to God. Why did this happen? Why did this happen to me? Why was this taken from me? What are you trying to tell me, God? And I think at the end of the day, I realized that it's not something that happened to me. It's something that, for whatever reason, it was part of my path. It was part of the path that God put up in front of me. And I stopped asking why, and I started asking, how can I make things different and how can I move on in a positive way?
And so I see that as when you started turning in the right direction. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great. So I can't even imagine that. I mean, wow. It's crazy, because you essentially had your diagnosis in what I like to call the dark age,
Hmm.
because you didn't have, you know, access to much knowledge, or the
Nope.
internet was probably very limited. Uh, the doctors, I think things have evolved to a certain point. But as far as doctors' manners and everything, I think that has evolved. It's not to where it could be or where it should be, but I can only imagine what the bedside manner was during that time. It had to be really, really tough.
It was really, really tough. And only now are we learning about issues and quality of life issues. None of that was talked about during chemo. I mean, during when I went through chemo with the ovarian cancer. I remember my doctor telling me, and this was 2001, 2002, I got my treatment, the chemo mostly in 2002 because in 2001 I had just had the surgery. Um, I was told not to exercise. I was told to just relax and rest and you know that's the opposite of what they tell you now. And they tell you exercise as much as you can, as much as you feel like you can, as much as you feel like you can handle. If you feel good, great. If you don't, go rest. But no, I was told, you know, if you go grocery shopping, wear a mask and get in a wheelchair, you know, and a scooter. So it's just amazing the night and day difference. Also, back in 2001, 2002, there weren't any kind of support services like support groups and things like that. And very limited. They were around, but they were extremely limited. And the internet hadn't really opened up yet with all those
Yeah.
kinds of services.
I mean, I've seen, even since I was diagnosed back in 2021, and even in that time from then till now, it's really expanded a lot. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and I mean, I've been amazed, so I can only imagine, from your perspective, how uh, and I talked to, longtime survivors, and in fact, a friend of mine, Michael Permack, he was told when he got diagnosed, he was told the doctor came to him and said, "Hey, I have some good news." And Michael said, "Oh, okay, great. What?" He says, "You have a brain tumor and you have 2 years to live." And he looked at the guy and he said, "How in the world is that good news?" So I think at least from then until now, certain bedside manners have definitely gotten better, but there's still a way to go, because a lot of it depends on the individual person too, the individual doctor, how they handle, uh, the diagnosis. To me, I have a pet peeve with two things: the diagnosis and proclaiming a person is in remission or NED. So, I mean, we're not going to go into that right now, but
Yeah.
because that's a huge,
Yeah.
real huge topic.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, okay, so you prayed and you started turning. So what was your mindset at that point, uh, moving forward? What were you telling yourself?
Well, I want to make it clear that the turning point didn't happen for years. When I finished chemo in the fall of 2002, I was kind of in shock over everything that had happened. And it wasn't until I saw a doctor at MD Anderson and he said, "You're in full remission. Go live your life." And I was in complete shock because I had been told back in Corpus Christi that I wasn't going to make it. I'd been given a stage 4 diagnosis. I had been told to get my affairs in order, say my goodbyes to my loved ones. And for somebody to tell me, "Nope, you're good. Go live your life." I was in complete and utter shock. And I kind of didn't know what to do with myself. So I was kind of floundering. And I was in a state of depression, I think, for at least a couple years. And then my dad, God rest his soul, he came up to me and said, "I think you should go get your master's." And I said, "Master's? I can barely put a thought together." I had severe chemo brain. And I still had a whole bunch of other side effects. I still had neuropathy, joint pain, fibromyalgia, all these things. And he said, "No, go do it. I'll help." And sure enough, I got my master's, and that really kickstarted everything. It rejuvenated me. It gave me hope for the future, and it really changed I think, the course of the rest of my life.
Awesome. Talk about how important hope is.
There's always hope. Hope is something that I think that you can build for yourself. Hope is always there. You just have to reach for it and believe in it and find it for yourself. It's going to be different for everybody. For me, it was the hope that there would be life and there you could have a good life without children. You'll have a wonderful life. You'll see many things. You'll go many places, experience things. You'll be alive to experience it. There's always hope.
Love that. Absolutely love that. You've embraced, I could just tell, I could tell you've learned a lot from your experience and talk about what each day opening your eyes means to you.
I can't express into words how special it is for me to open my eyes and realize, thank you, God, I'm still alive. For me to be able to take a breath, sit up, put my feet down on the floor, and realize that I'm still around. I don't take anything for granted. I don't take anybody for granted. I don't take my breath for granted. Um, it could be a really dark, gloomy day outside, and I'll just take a deep breath and say, "Thank you, God, for the beautiful day." To me, it's beautiful. It may look gloomy and depressing, but to me, it's gorgeous because it's something that is a gift. And no day is promised. And I got another one out of it. And here I am, 20 something years after I was told to say my goodbyes, I had a social worker actually come into my room and say, well, I understand you don't have any health insurance, so I'm sure you don't have any money for your parents to bury you. So I recommend that you apply for Social Security for so that at least your parents will have death benefits for you. That's how bad it was.
Wow. How did you overcome the insurance aspect of it?
I really floundered for a couple of months. I didn't know what to do. I went to hospital system after hospital system asking, and they kept saying, do you have $20,000 you can put down as a deposit? No, I don't. I had already depleted my 401k from my previous employer for the surgery itself. So I didn't have any money. And what I ended up doing was I found out about indigent care in my hometown through my county. And to qualify for indigent care there, you have to have zero income coming in. And I fit the bill. I quit all my freelancing. I moved in with my parents. I didn't have a car in my name, nothing to my name, and I qualified for it. And it saved my life.
And so what did that do for you moving forward from that point?
From that point, I was able to get Social Security benefits, but the Medicare didn't kick in for like a year or two. So in the interim, the county got took care of my health care until Medicare could kick in. And I had great insurance with Medicare. It was excellent care. And again, this was 2002 to 2003. It wasn't super expensive. And I was very blessed to have gotten the health care that I did because yes, it did save my life.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And you bring up a very good point. And that's why support groups are so important because, for instance, our cancer conquering community on Thursdays at 12 Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. And with different people, you can learn. I'm always learning. Every time we have a cancer conquering community, I learn something new. And all these nuggets, get invested up here. And you just brought up a great point, which I had heard you on a previous interview say that, but I wanted you to say that here because you just don't know when your back is against the wall, there are answers. You just have to find them. You have to become a a treasure hunter and looking for those nuggets that can help you. And that's what it's all about. And that's where the fight comes in, is you have to fight for yourself. You have to fight for your own life because it's not going to be handed to you. And the problem with the cancer journey is a lot of times people aren't physically able to have that fight, but somehow you're going to have help to do it, or yourself, or a collaboration of both. But that's such an important aspect. And whoever coined you know the term cancer battle, I mean, that is spot on, because you're in a battle for your life. And so the question becomes at that point is, how important is your life to you, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so talk about that. How important was your life to you at that point?
At that point, I kept thinking about my parents having to bury their oldest child. And I was not going to go down without a fight. I did not want them to experience that. I had a lovely childhood. My parents were amazing, nurturing. From a very, very young age, I knew that they would throw themselves on a railroad track for me. They would do anything for me. And I did not want them to have to deal with the heartache of burying. And there's only two of us, my sister and I, and my younger sister and I. And um, I did not want them to experience that. And my dad, being a former Marine and Vietnam vet, uh, he taught me some skills. He taught me some skills, I felt like I was kind of in my own kind of trenches. He taught me some hardiness and some resiliency and fight. And he was right there with me at every step, every chemo, every x-ray, every CT scan, every doctor's appointment. He was right there by my side. And he was the perfect antidote to what I was going through. Not only was he my dad, obviously, but he taught me a lot about strength and and being in the fight. And it definitely helped.
That is beautiful. And talk about the importance of having a support system when you're going through cancer. And it could just be one person, it could be more. I had a number of people, which was I was very, very fortunate that really were there and made a big difference. Talk about that.
I had a team for sure. I had a team. Everybody had their role, and they just kind of fit in like a glove. My dad was my you know, punish the pain. He would always tell me, punish the pain, punish the pain. My mom was the quiet but always there for whatever I needed. A the special tea that she made for me, or the special little snacky, that something that I could tolerate, because during chemo I was so incredibly sick the whole time. My sister helping me gather the different advocacy things or support groups. She was the one to immediately, first thing when we heard it was cancer, she called the American Cancer Society and had a packet mailed to the house. My fiance, who was absolutely there at every turn, he was the one that came up with a, a whole Excel spreadsheet of different aromatherapy scents and how they would affect, like if I was moody, if I was in pain, if I wanted something uplifting, what scents to put together. And it was a whole big Excel spreadsheet. Before, there were all sorts of websites that already had it on there. He went out and did the research to give that to me. So everybody had their role. Everybody had something to contribute, and all that put together helped me in more ways than I can even put into words.
Beautiful. I love that.
Yeah,
I have a question for you.
sure.
I think we have a lot more to talk about. Would you like to come back and shoot a part two?
Sure, of course.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. Uh, because there's another part of your journey, your advocacy part of your journey. I don't even think we've uh, done justice to. I love talking to longtime survivors because they have so much experience and have
Yeah,
gone through so much, and I just love uh, hearing about all of it.
sure.
So. What would you like to leave everyone as, you know, for this particular interview? What would you like to leave our audience with as far as, the point that you would like to, main point that you would like to share?
The main point I'd like to share is don't ever forget there's always hope. I know cancer can be isolating. Cancer can be a very lonely disease. Sometimes you're in a room full of people and you're still super, super lonely. You feel like nobody relates, nobody understands what you're going through. And believe it or not, there are other of us out there that do know what you're going through. There's so much support to be found online. Um, there's always somebody there that knows what you've been through. And in my experience, the best help comes from somebody who's been there. So find yourself a mentor, somebody that has your cancer diagnosis to help you through this, because you're not alone. You're never alone.
Paul, and I have one final question for you.
Sure.
Um, how, you have a wealth of experience.
Yeah.
How would Rebecca help make this world a better place? What would you do if you had, a lot of power to affect things, what would you do?
A lot of power or a lot of money?
Either one. Whatever,
Okay.
comes to mind.
If I had a lot of money, I would create a foundation that would help cancer patients eradicate their medical debt.
Great answer. Great
Yeah.
answer. Yeah, I mean, I'm always about that and trying to help people find sources and everything like that. They're out there, but it's always a tough thing. There's so many people looking for, help and everything like that. I know several nonprofits that are just inundated and so
Yeah.
they can only, their ability has really shrunk because of the how many people are out there. And, for those of you who don't know, uh, statistics are that by the age of 50, 1 in 2 men will get cancer. 1 in 3 women will get cancer.
Yeah.
So cancer is an epidemic. So if you haven't gotten it, consider yourself fortunate. But as far as I'm concerned, a cancer journey, a lot of it is about alleviating fear, which comes through education. So, we have people coming into our cancer community and, things like that say, I know people that have gotten it, at least find out about it because it's always good to educate yourself about cancer because it's so prevalent. And we live in such a toxic world today. Our air is not what it could be. Our water is not what it could be. Our food, all these things that surround us. Plus, we have other factors involved with cell phones and computers and EMF rays and all these different things. So we live you know, in a very modernized world, but with that modernization comes other factors. And so it's always a good thing to educate yourself because what happens is people get a diagnosis and all of a sudden they're faced with having to make life-changing, life-altering decisions with next to no knowledge. And that doesn't do anybody any good because all of a sudden you're on your heels, you're on defense. And so it's always a good thing to get some education and talk to people who've gone through it, such as Rebecca and other people that we've interviewed here. And you could reach out to me anytime. And I'd like to thank you, Rebecca, and I look forward to shooting a part 2 with you.
Sure.
Uh, it'll be fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us here at the Be Your Own Hero. And as Rebecca said earlier, make the most out of every day because every single day is a true blessing and a gift. And treat every day like you never know when it's going to be your last because one day it will be.
Yeah.
Every hour, every minute, every second is precious. So hey, have a great week, and we will see you next week on To Be Your Own Hero. Thank you very much.